Welcome back to the From Grief to Purpose podcast. On this particular episode, today we have a very special guest, Alicia Fuentes. She is a transformational coach with 28 years of experience in the corporate world, where she developed a deep understanding of the challenges that female professionals face. Drawing from her extensive background in leadership, personal development, and work-life balance, she now empowers unfulfilled women to lead lives filled with purpose and meaning. Through her signature coaching program, Rise 90 Days to Rock Solid Confidence, Alicia helps women build rock solid confidence, embrace their feminine energy, and achieve sustainable work-life harmony. Her approach, combined with practical strategies, allows clients to overcome self-doubt, break through limiting beliefs, and step into their potential as confident leaders. Whether it's balancing personal and professional life or unlocking the confidence needed to thrive, Alicia provides the tools and support necessary to help women transform their lives. I have had the pleasure to meet Miss Alicia and speak and chat with her before the podcast. And let me tell you, she is truly about embracing change and being unstoppable. Are you all ready to get into this particular episode today? Well, let's get into it. Well, first of all, welcome back, you all, to the podcast, From Grief to Purpose. Thank you so much for joining me once again. And as I stated before, I have a very special guest on today, Miss Alicia Fuentes. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before, of course, we dive into your career journey, I'd love for you to tell our audience just a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, like what life looks like for you now outside of your current life, work, and so forth. You can share with us, are you married? Do you have any pets? What are some of your personal passions that keep you grounded? Whatever you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. Welcome. So welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Menina. And I'm truly honored to be part of your podcast. So thank you very much for bringing me on. And yes, let me share a bit about myself. So I'm proud 50-year-old. um, I
Yay.
think most people don't. Most women tend to shy away from saying their age, but I believe for me, 50 years on this wonderful earth, and it has been filled with challenges, but successes as well. And I think I really prefer focus on the positives and through whom I've been able to achieve those things, right? So as currently an entrepreneur, I have gone into the space of coaching, and it is something that has given me a lot of satisfaction, I would say, and helping me find my purpose at this point in life, so that you know what has been able to get me here is really my journey, my own inner journey with God. And I really have to say that I all praises to him, because it has been a, a journey that has had difficulties and unexpected circumstances along the way that has led me to where I'm at today. So I am happily married, 21 years now. And my husband, Brent, and I, we have a fur baby, and her name is Zoe, and she's just
Aw.
3 years old. Um, and we live in Trinidad, which is a small, I would say, a twin island. So it's Trinidad and Tobago, twin island which is part of the Caribbean. And yes, I think apart from that, I'm very fortunate to say that I still have my parents alive. So it's a small family: my mom, my dad, my brother, my husband Brent, and Zoe. Yes.
Awesome. First of all, shout out to your age, being proud and speaking it loud and proud as an older woman. I'm an older woman. I'm 45 and I have no shame in my game. So I love you for saying that. Like, I just, I feel your age is, the years that you've been blessed to be on this earth. So I love that. And again, as I mentioned before, to the audience, Miss Alicia is a transformational coach. So I love the fact though that you mentioned about like some of the difficulties and unexpected circumstances, just with your own personal journey. So let's get into that because I know we are having you on today just to dive a little bit more into that specific thing exactly as well, and then also to talk about your circumstance in surrounding the redundancy of your job position that you had left from and your current state now. So if we can go into just that initial impact and what happened and give us a little bit of detail about that career shift as well.
Yes, certainly. Menina, the really positive thing about this situation right now, I feel that if you had spoken to me maybe about, I don't know, 6 to 8 months ago,
Mhm.
my take would have been so different to what it is today. And even this morning, I was just reflecting on the importance of perspective and how the perspective that we choose to have, uh, it really impacts the way we live our life. And
Mm,
for me, the redundancy, 6 to 8 months ago, I would have said that, it was the worst thing that could have happened to me. And, I felt like, how am I going to go on in life? How could I be at age 50 and, be in this situation? And I do believe that it was necessary to go through that phase because a job loss or a redundancy or a retrenchment, whichever word people choose to use, is indeed loss. It is something that you go through a grief process with or through. And I believe for me, because of the nature in which it happened, it was such a shock. It was something that I did not expect. And, I was there going about my merry way, believing that I'm having this positive impact within the organization, believing that literally I would use inverted quotes to say I had arrived. At that time I was approaching 50 and I felt that, my gosh, I look back at my career and the achievements. It has just been an amazing journey in terms of achievements. Now, that is just looking at it at the surface, what everyone will see just from looking on, not knowing how challenging, sorry, those years have been. So for me, my corporate life spanned 28 years, and t- um 18 and a half of those years were actually with two oil and gas majors. And that's when I had, I think, the most growth during my career. 10 of those years, I I functioned as a manager, and I had the awesome opportunity to really work with, you know, teams of personnel to be able to really develop and groom, younger ones, I would say. So that was
mhm,
very much a fulfilling opportunity for me. And I realized along the way that I really want to be able to have that impact. But before I probably sort of go off my journey as such, and let me just come pull it back to that aspect of the redundancy.
okay.
Um, the redundancy, why I say it was something surprising, and it really took me off guard, is that I would have been, as one of the managers, discussing with the leadership the direction of the organization. I knew that the organization especially because it's oil and gas. It had been quite a difficult number of years in that industry, and organizations were becoming leaner and having reshape or restructure redundancies. These things actually had become quite a common situation. So I had actually gone through the process where personnel within my team, you know, were made redundant. And I remember thinking, I need to be realistic that it could be my turn next. But, you know, I think the expectation that we may sometimes have, or the allegiance that we have to our organization, that is something that needs to be considered, because I always felt that, I was giving my best, I was giving my all. Um, and if something like this were to happen, surely I would have an idea. The writing would be on the wall, as they say. Somebody would have reached out and had a conversation with me. And there I was sitting thinking that way, not knowing that, you know, discussions were happening and I wasn't aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was probably the most disappointing aspect for me, that there was no sort of discussion beforehand to sort of prepare, those of us who are going to be made redundant. So when it happened, I'll give you the funny story that I am coming up to 1 year. In fact, the day I was actually told that this was happening was Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving last year. And of
Mm.
course,
Wow.
Thanksgiving is coming again, right? The 28th of November.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I was in Florida at my brother-in-law's, spending the vacation time there with him. And I received that call, on that day. And even as I'm saying it now, I can feel myself go a little cold, because I did not expect it. And listening to that, I remembered thinking to myself after, I'm proud that I stayed very calm. I maintained, you know, a strong, calm character in front of my boss and HR. And I did not make any, noise about it, to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But um the initial months, I would say 2 to 3 months, I don't think I really accepted what had happened. I think I was in a bit of a dream. Maybe because it was also Christmas time, and Christmas happens to be, my favorite time of the year. So I allowed myself to just live within that space of Christmas and family time and all of that. And when 2024 began, I think very maybe into the second month of 2024, when I started to look at new jobs, applications and so forth, I realized that, my gosh, this is real. You know, I'm a few months away from 50. I always thought that I would retire in the company. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't expect it to go this way. And it was a very, very lonely time. The people who I had considered to be friends were no longer there. It's almost like, um, no, I think there's a saying that goes something like, out of what is it, boy? I'm stuck now. But basically, when you're not there, you're not visible. People just forget you, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I felt like that there were no longer, people checking in. I had all this time on hand now. So in the beginning, I enjoyed it. And then within 2 to 3 months, I started to get a little bit bored. And I went through the process of crying, of shouting, of being really angry, being bitter, being remorseful. Um, I blamed myself. I questioned, why me? Why now? Am I not good enough? Did I not
Mm.
give enough to them? I look back at my career, and I realized that throughout my career I even had challenges with my marriage due to the fact that I gave everything to the company,
Yeah.
and I didn't have work life balance. I didn't know what it is to really um, focus on self care. I had been basically living a life where I was just coping
Mm.
because the workload was so heavy, the criticisms were heavy, um, having to deal with team members who had, fears of being made redundant as well. It was quite difficult. And here it is now. I'm at this stage when I'm thinking, who's going to hire me now? At age 50, they're going to think, well, yeah, we don't want to invest in you. So I really went through a process of self doubt. And I also have to admit openly that I lost my footing in terms of my spiritual life. I questioned
Mhm.
God. And to this day, I I still, ask forgiveness of him, because who am I to question his choice and his direction for me? And it's only through the support of my husband and my parents and a couple close friends, I realized that, you know what? God has always been there with me
Mm.
throughout those 50 years. Yes, I had times when I fell down. I didn't know how to get back up, but he was always there. He always held my hand. He always got me through. And you know what was the interesting part about it, Menino?
Mhm.
Every step of the way, I rose and I was stronger.
Mm. Wow.
It was never, never with all my um with everything in me. I do not recall any time when I can say that it was a step back for me. It was always a step forward. And even though after like about the third month, I was still not seeing the way forward. And I was thinking, God, what is the step forward? I just literally can't see it. You know,
Mhm.
times before I was much younger, I was much more energetic. I probably had a lot more, I don't know, ambition and goals and plans. So it seemed obvious, yes, I would just keep moving. But now I'm 50 and I don't know my attachment to that number, right?
Mhm.
So compared to when I say now I'm 50, I don't feel any sort of negative way about being that, and that being like a block or a barrier to my future. So even as I'm saying it to you, I'm realizing, my gosh, there has been growth. Like I embrace 50 now, and I recognize that with it has come a lot of growth, a lot of experiences that I can share, um, to have the impact and to have the influence that I've always wanted to have. Um, and realizing that even within the organization I was in, which was a fantastic organization, and I did gain so much. There's so much I have to be thankful for, um, in terms of where I'm at now, for the growth that I had, the opportunities I had, the mentors who I had who believed in me and gave me those opportunities. However, I had gotten to a stage where going forward, growing and continuing to develop really had sort of plateaued.
Okay.
And I believe no matter how much more hours I would have put into that, thinking that was the right thing I needed to do. If I just work more hours, if I choose not to go on vacation, if I put my hand up to lead this next project or this next activity, even though I am so loaded already, if, they'll realize that she's ready for the next step.
Mm.
But little did I also, not see was that, um, I was burning out. I had gotten to that stage of burnout, and the signs of, not wanting to get off the bed in the morning, not wanting to log on, not even wanting to go to the office, um, dreading the back to back meetings, dreading the times that I would have to say no to family events just because I needed to actually work during that weekend to stay on top of everything.
Mm.
All those signs that I continue to ignore. And the funny thing about it is afterward, my family pointed it out. And I remember maybe by the fourth month, my dad said something to me that has stayed with me throughout this year. And it was that he said, I would find that you would come home, um, and even though you're here, it's like you're physically here, but you're not really present.
Mm.
And he went as far as to say one day, I felt like I might be having a heart attack right here, and you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even
Oh, wow.
recognize.
Mm.
And that stopped me in my tracks because I realized that, my gosh, really, there was no mindfulness on my part. I was just going through the motions day in, day out, and believing that that is what success really was. A high paying job in a very well established, renowned oil and gas company, fancy vehicle, nice home, opportunities to travel different parts of the world. I thought that is what success really was.
Right, right.
And I would say that my perspective has changed. And I'm so absolutely grateful for the mentors I've had this year who have all helped me look at things from a different lens or through a different lens. And even my encounter with you, I am absolutely grateful for meeting you and the conversations we have had. And I realized that what I thought, or I had gotten to a stage where I looked at people with so much suspicion, because I experienced a lot of toxicity.
Mm.
But that made me so suspicious of others. I was actually sort of um, closing myself off, new friendships. And through this journey that I've been on this year, I have started to be more open and to allow myself to meet people and to give people a chance and to recognize that there is in fact good people in this world. But we
Nice.
do need to be, we still need to be conscious of, sort of checking into that and not being overly vulnerable with everybody and just sharing everything. I've also learned that honesty in an office or a corporate environment can mean different things to different people. And
Yeah.
that was a very hard lesson I had to learn along the way as well. When I thought I was being vulnerable and sharing, um, I probably was being too vulnerable at times. And some of that was used, not in the way it was meant from my sharing.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, we definitely live and learn. I've been there a time or two myself. Before we continue on into further, I want to know a little bit though about the emotional challenges and how you navigated the challenges that you faced to the reaction of, if we can go back just a little bit on the initial loss, because sometimes people don't realize, like you were saying before, that, grief is basically, you're just, we're talking about grief is you're grieving a significant loss and such. It could be like
Yes.
a job, a relationship, or whatever that's significant to you. And in your case, it was the job because, especially when you're on a job for so many years, like it's like you were on your job for 28 years. It becomes a part of you. And
Yes.
so, like, processing that, if you can just walk our audience through, like, how did you process each emotion that you went through? Like, what exactly were some of the emotions, to go back a bit? I know you touched on, that you at first didn't accept it. You had moments that you felt lonely just from, not having those relationships any longer that you once had before with your coworkers. Like, but some people don't bounce back. That's why I want to
Yes.
kind of go through
That's
the
true.
emotional part. Like, so how did you like navigate those emotions? Like, was it, because you mentioned God and your relationship with God, was it a you and God thing? Was it you tapping into your own personal, power, which I all equated to God anyway because He made us.
Hmm.
But but
Yes.
what was it for you? Just to, if you could help somebody through that by
Sure.
them understanding your process.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Each person's journey is going to be so very different. And that's where I think resilience comes into play. I always believe that when we go through challenges in life, and the normal tendency is to look at those things as setbacks, and we sort of mourn those things. For
Mhm.
me, I take it as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And by doing that along my life, my journey, I believe that really set me up in terms of that resilience, being able to bounce back. And
Mhm.
throughout the years, there have been several situations along my life that I think helped with that. And one that really come to mind that would always be, I would say, had a massive impact in my life is when I was just a teenager. I think I was getting ready for like my first level of exams at high school. I was that would have been about age 14 or 15. My family home was destroyed by fire, and it's amazing that we survived. um and that in fact no one, so my mom, my dad, my brother, and I, none of us was in any way badly injured, but we did
Mhm.
lose our home. And
Mhm.
I remember it was just before my exams. I had lost everything, even down to my glasses,
Oh, wow.
all my
Wow.
books, my notes, and I was just, a couple of months away from exams. And I think that was probably the first major impact in my life that I had to get up and get going again and move forward. So for me, I believe that for someone who might be experiencing a loss, it is about tapping into that power that exists within yourself, knowing that you have everything you need within yourself. Yes, you may opt to seek external support in terms of a therapist, or you may go to your spiritual leader. You may have a mentor or coach. These things are all help in terms of support system.
Mhm.
And then you may have your family, right? So in my case, I think my first level was really my family.
Okay.
And even before maybe I turned myself, to God, because at that time, as I said, I was pretty angry, and I couldn't figure this out. What did I do wrong?
Mhm.
So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And I think if anyone were to go through a situation, a loss, and be grieving, if he or she just sort of automatically get up the following day and say, okay, what's the plan? I'm gonna go forward in this direction. I think it's a sign that that person is really not dealing with the trauma
Mm.
and is probably just masking it, right? And I would say that's even more dangerous. For me, what I believe is essential and what I did was experience it, go through it. If I had to cry, I didn't hold myself back. I cried. I sat on the ground of
Mm.
the washroom and just, you know, just bawled basically,
Yes.
right? I I took all the things that reminded me of the company, my polo t-shirts, my mugs, my mouse pads, everything that had the logo and so on. I just packed them up in a bag and I got rid of them, right?
Mm.
I just didn't want to see those things.
Mhm.
So being able to have that strong support system, you have to, as a person, and this is what I did, I realized that I could not do this on my own. I would be fooling myself if I said I can do this on my own. I knew I had to bring the people around me who love me to be there for me. And they were there.
Yes.
They stood by me while I cried. They stood by me when I probably played the victim at times, you know, when I shouted against other people who probably really had nothing to do with the decision at the end of the day, but it was just part of the process. And then listen to their words of advice, which I think is important for someone going through, to be open to listening to others, right?
Mhm.
Um, and allowing yourself the permission or giving yourself that permission to say, I am willing to take the help. So my dad very, very subtly started to encourage me to go to church. And what had happened was he would tie it into me coming down home, because
Mhm.
I obviously I don't live with my parents anymore. Um and we're like about an hour apart from each other. So
Okay.
sometimes I might just go down once a week. And he would try to encourage me to come down on this Sunday and say, well, come down, mom is going to barbecue today. Right. And I'm like, okay. Because sometimes, Menina, I didn't want to come out of the bed.
Mm.
I just wanted to stay in my PJs under my blanket, crying, and or maybe just watching TV, all day long, really not doing anything productive, to be quite frank. And my
Mhm.
dad he never gave up, on that. He would call, he would, try to get me to come. And I think I have to admit, I don't recall exactly when and at what moment, but I would definitely say it was about the third month, maybe toward the end of the third month. I just sort listening to my parents and my husband, I said, you know what, Alicia, God has always had a plan for you and he's never left you hanging. So it's time to get up now and move forward. It's time to figure it out. Now you always wanted time. You always wanted the freedom to do other things.
Mm.
So what are you going to do with all this time that you have? And I spoke to myself, maybe at one point thinking I could, am I going insane? But I spoke to myself. And the first step that I took was to register for a personal development course. And I, as God would have it, I found an organization called Mind Valley. I'm sorry, Mind Movies. Big mistake there. Sorry, because they're two
Oh, no
different
worries. Yeah.
organizations. Yeah. Um, Mind Movies with an amazing lady by the name of Natalie Ledwell, and it was a 3-month program. I got into the program, and one of the first things in that program that they deal with is having you really tap into your vision. What is it that
Mhm.
you want for your future? So here it is. I'm approaching 50 years old. I'm out of a job. I don't know what is, what it is I want to do. I'm thinking, obviously, I need to go back into the corporate space. And I'm just like going through LinkedIn and just applying for everything that I can find. And as I went through that program and I started to look at doing visualization, I had never really paid attention to visualization and manifestation and those type of things, meditation. I got into that and I just told myself, I'm going to be open minded.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in there and I did the 3 months revisiting my core values, really looking at what my passions are. And I say passions because I always had this feeling that I was only supposed to have one passion, you
Oh,
know?
wow. Mm-hmm.
So my passion was health, safety, and environment. I was an HSE manager, and that was my passion. I never thought
Mm-hmm.
about anything beyond that. And here it is, I'm in this program, and they are telling me I can have more than one passion.
Mm.
And my mind went to work, and I'm thinking, what are all the things that I've always liked, but I always felt I didn't have time for? And writing was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking was another. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I wanted to actually, you know, put my experiences on paper with the idea that maybe one day I can look at doing a book. And I just allowed myself to really let go. And while in that program, Natalie also spoke about connecting to your higher purpose and your creator, whether you call him God or whatever, the universe, whatever you call it. And that was the step for me. I realized, my gosh, God, I have not sat still and just let you be. And together with actually, physically going to church, it's where I would say I started to see the changes. And I just embraced those changes. And along that way, I started to feel better. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't have days when I sort of fell back into the crying and all that, but I
Right.
started to pray and I started to ask God to help me to forgive others, the ones who I think had done me wrong.
Mm.
And would I say that I don't have my moments even to this point? I still have the moments. I was speaking to another colleague who had been made redundant just last week, and we both have come a long way. But we acknowledge that sometimes we do feel sad, but we gained so much through those years that now we are better people and we can give more of ourselves because we can share the lessons with others.
Mm.
So
Right.
I believe it really is individual, how long someone will stay in one phase of grief will differ from one to the next. But resilience, I would say, is the key. If you have managed to build up your resilience over the years, you can bounce back. You have to believe in yourself and you've got to do the work. If it is you're not feeling that belief, you've got to do the work to find it. And that could mean having a coach, having a mentor, having that spiritual guide,
Yes.
having support of your family and friends. That's the only way. You cannot do it on your own.
Yes. I love how you mentioned too also um in answering that question, you spoke on that piece big was resiliency, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
drawing though from in order to pull from your, I'll call it your resiliency reserve,
Yes,
that
correct.
ability
Mm-hmm.
to bounce back, like you had to pull from, past experience, and you shared a past experience with us. And it's because we all have, past experiences that we've already overcome. And so each experience, I like to think that we face in life, it's not supposed to knock us down completely. It's supposed to be able to, like you said, make you stronger. So
Definitely.
I love that you added that part. And it sounds like you had an amazing though support group though, like with your family. So that's awesome. I'm glad you had that because not many people have
Yes.
that family support because everybody's situation is different. Um, but not everybody have has that. But there are plenty of agencies that you can reach out to if you ever need help. And I'll try, and they're also listed on my website. But moving forward, if we could fast forward to like where you are now in life, because it sounds like you have overcome so much just within that transition again, because the impact to me, like the great impact was that because you were on the job for 28 years, so it's become a
Yes.
part of your identity. And I've shared with you a little bit about my own personal transition process from my former career until now, and it
That's
is like
true.
it's a mind shift. It's
It
it's a mental
it is
shift.
a mind. Yes, you're correct. I'm glad you said that actually. Yes.
Yes. And so, but moving forward, because you are a transformation life coach, right? You are a
Yes.
transformation life coach. And so I want to just take the audience to just that portion of like in your current career, your current work now. Give us a little bit about what you do. Like, do you feel like you've currently found, since you've gone through this transition, like a renewed sense of purpose? And if so, like how did that sense of purpose evolve, or did that take some time, and so forth? Or what was the steps? Like what were the steps from you leaving one career, finding a whole new career, or what you wanted to do? Because you also spoke about that creative piece. And let me go back on that too, because I have to add, when you said that, I had to laugh like internally because when you said that your father had reminded you that you always wanted this time and freedom, so it's time to go towards that. Let me
Yes.
tell you that I had to remember a prayer that I prayed when I was in my last career. And as I've shared before, I was in the military, right? I
Mhm.
prayed a prayer asking God for more creative time. And of course, when you work for any like big company, organization, especially the government, like your time is not your time, not
Not
in the
at
way that you
all.
want it to be, right? And so I remember praying this prayer. And so when I was going through my transition, like this whole phase of the fogginess of it, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I was in my like, why is this happening type of mindset? Like, why is this not happening? Why is that not happening? And God had to remind me, like, hello, you remember this prayer that you prayed? Like you prayed for more creative times. I had to laugh when you mentioned that your dad had mentioned that to you. And because
Yes.
I had like a, oh, you're right. I did pray that prayer, which was ultimately, I feel like it's almost like your redundancy was almost like a I don't want to say, well, it could be a
I
godsend, but it
would
was
say
almost like
I would say to you a blessing in disguise.
a blessing in disguise, right? As far as like your family time is back, like you get to do what you
Yeah.
want to do, or since create a whole new life. But anyways, moving forward, because I don't want to get too deep in that, because I can talk all day about that. But moving towards like what you do now in your current work, like, do you feel like you found a renewed sense of purpose, or if so, like how did you get there to like help
Okay.
someone else transition? Like, how do you
Yes.
find that purpose for yourself?
Well, that's a really good way to start. And how do you find that purpose? I would say that because I truly believe everything that we need is already within us. I
Mm-hmm.
believe, as I mentioned, the passions, you know, that's already there. In a sense, I firmly believe we are born with it.
Yeah.
And it's just over time we uncover or discover what those things are. So that I I probably did not mention this along the way, but while one of maybe the best opportunities I would say that I've had in my career, and this is again thanks to my last organization, I had the opportunity to do an international assignment, and I was based in Egypt, and that was for 5 years over the period to 2015 to 2020.
Okay.
During that time, it was probably the first time in my career I experienced work-life balance. I
Mm-hmm.
really had, I have a lot of respect for the Egyptian people and for the way that they embrace life. And no matter what difficulty they are facing, they
Mm-hmm.
take the best out of it. And while I was there, I got this opportunity to really sit and think about, what if the job that I'm doing now, um, it's no longer there, what would I want to do? And I had started to explore coaching. And it was just simply from looking at Facebook. I was also doing some personal development programs while I was there because I had a bit more time in terms of just the way the work, the way of working that was
Mm-hmm.
done there. I had time that I could invest in myself. So I was doing a couple personal development programs through Mind Valley. And while one day I'm looking through Facebook, I came upon someone by the name of Danny Watson, and her place is called the Click Academy. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a conversation, with one of her representatives, and I thought, people always tell me that I can be, people like to come to speak to me. People feel empowered. They feel that they can share, their innermost secrets with me. So I thought, okay, maybe I can look into this coaching, and that's when it started, which is basically like 8 years ago. I did not pursue it at the time because, yes, while I did have a bit more time to invest in myself, at the same time, I was still in a very fast paced environment in a foreign country with a lot of responsibilities in the job that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I could not really invest my time to do this in the best way. However, when the redundancy happened and I started to apply for jobs going back into the corporate space, I was actually not having success. And that I realized it. The day came when I just said to myself, you know what? I'm tired of the rejection. I am tired of giving power to all these hiring managers who, for whatever reason, are not seeing me as someone that they want to hire. So
Mm-hmm.
what can I do? And, and again, with the family support, the situation came up. We said, well, why don't you, really go into the coaching now, explore this, have your own business? And I'm like, wow, my own business, be an entrepreneur. I don't know anything about having a business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I started, and I have to admit, I started following different people on social media, attending a number of webinars and masterclasses, investing in a few programs. And I realized that, you know what, this is something I think is what I would like to spend, the next chapter of my life on. And
Yes.
at first, to be frank, I wasn't very clear how to go about it, what to do, what areas to focus on. So it was a bit of trial and error, I will admit.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I think the biggest step for me was when I got into a mastermind with someone by the name of Richmond Din. And that mastermind was really the the point in time that I started to get clarity, clarity on my niche, clarity on how to go about, setting the business up and learning how to do sales essentially, which was not something I had ever ventured into. And for the last 3 months, because I only really registered my business in, I think it was July. And for the 3 months, got I launched the business. I became very focused on social media, in particular Facebook, and I started doing the coaching. I got my coaching certification as well, and um, the whole process of becoming a transformation coach really appealed to me because I believe in transformation. I believe that there is no limit in terms of age or background for someone being able to experience transformation. It's really about a person having the desire to
Yes.
change and recognizing that change is the only constant that we have in life. So that once you can embrace that and you can allow yourself to go through that journey, this is something that I want to be able to support people with. So I have been working with, I would say, overwhelmed working professional women who have been struggling with the work life balance, who have been struggling with even having confidence, who have been struggling with being their authentic self. I've been working with them to gain those things, to identify what their purpose could be, to recognize, how they are to show up as authentic feminine leaders, how they are to build rock solid confidence, and how they are to create that work life balance or work life harmony so that life doesn't just get away with you just being focused on work and
Mm,
forgetting all the other elements that constitute a purposeful life. And I would say that it has been absolutely fulfilling. I get this amazing opportunity and have the honor of, women who are coachable, I would say, because they are willing to come out and to do the work to take themselves to the next level, and that means having to be vulnerable with me, having to share, having to um discover certain things within their life, you know,
mhm,
whether it is that maybe they need to make some changes. And, not everybody is absolutely open and willing to do the change. When you have to look at in the mirror and take that hard look and recognize that, okay, maybe the feedback my boss has been giving me, he or she's onto something. Maybe I should listen. Maybe the reason I'm not moving forward is because I have not been open to change and to learning new ways of doing things. So I feel, to your question in terms of my purpose, I really strongly and sincerely believe that I have found my purpose. And the 28 years in the corporate world were not a loss. Those were the years that built me up to this point to be able to identify and to really recognize and acknowledge that what I want to do in this remaining time of my life is to have that impact and that influence and to help others navigate their life, their career in particular, and embrace the change, embrace the transformation, have that willingness to go to the next level. So I do believe I've found that purpose, and I'm still open to wherever God wants to take me. So within one of the things I've learned in the coaching industry is that your niche isn't something that is we describe it as your niche is not a tattoo, right? You can
mhm.
change that because you are going to evolve. Even yourself as a coach, you are going to evolve along the way.
Yes.
And I really like that because I've always said to people, along my journey that I do tend to get a bit bored. I know that I've had managers say to me, but Alicia, you always seem to not be too sure what you want to do. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do the other. And for many years, Menina, I looked at that as something wrong with me.
Mhm,
Why
mhm,
is it that I have all these things that I'm interested in and everybody else seemed to be very focused and specific? And I thought that being a generalist was a bad thing.
mhm.
But I have turned that around and I choose to look at it as being a generalist allows me the opportunity to have many experiences, diverse experiences. And even though I may not say that I'm an expert in one area or the next, I have adequate knowledge and experience to be able to have a powerful impact. And therefore,
Mm.
I embrace being a generalist. And that has got me to where I'm at now. I'm able to bring all my life experiences, all the experiences I've had in my career, and use that in a positive way to uplift other women who are probably just a couple steps behind me, you know. So
Mm.
I really do believe this is um, this is my purpose right now at this point in time. Who's to say what's going to happen 5, 10 years from now? But definitely, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm taking all the steps to make sure that I have, you know, the suitable mentors and coaches, because that's the other point. And you would know this yourself, Menina. Even though someone is a coach or a business owner, it doesn't mean he or she knows everything.
Right.
You coaches do need coaches. So I do have
Yeah.
two coaches that are coaching me. I do have two mentors, right? Because they all bring
Yeah.
different perspectives. And that is also an important aspect, you know, when you make that decision to transform. And in my case, to really, it was a big transformation in terms of deciding to leave the corporate world and enter entrepreneurship. It's been
Hmm.
scary. And there have been many times I've been like, what on earth am I doing? You
Right.
know, why am I putting myself through this? You know, what if I fail? You know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then I would just stop. I would meditate. I would journal. And of course, I would pray. And I would just allow myself to stay still. And it's amazing how sometimes just simply taking away devices, switching them off, can have this amazing impact on how you get the answers to the
Yeah.
things that are, you know, troubling you. And I was
Hmm.
able to do that this weekend. I'm interestingly, I had a little situation with my cell phone, and even now I kind of ask myself, how did that really happen? I mean, I'm not that silly, but anyway, I leave it as it is, in that I think God just wanted me to switch off. And I literally switched off because I couldn't access my phone for 2 days. And
Hmm.
I did feel, as they say, like a fish out of water. Um, but the positive in that is that I was fully present in everything that I was doing with family and friends. And I got some time for myself to do some introspection. And that is something, no matter where we're at, whether we're in the corporate space or we're in the business space, it is very easy to become so absorbed in what you're doing. Um, Especially if you're like a high performing person, you want to put out the best.
Hmm.
And it's easy to fall back in that sort of mode. So for me, I have been very conscious and very mindful of how I was in the corporate world and what led to burnout, and making sure I don't repeat those. So let it be lessons that I've learned and that I can now implement to do things in a different way, in a more mindful way and more purposeful way.
Yes. Mm. I love how you mentioned just the part about number one. I'm gonna go back from like the tail end of the thing that you mentioned about taking a break from. I'm assuming like social media and your phone and
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
Like, I've learned to do that honestly often. My friend terms it as taking a dopamine break, which is just like, that reset that you need that
Yes.
triggers those dopamine responses in your brain because we're so attached to our phones and
Mhm.
televisions, And we forget, like, life outside of.
outside.
And I know, like, myself, like, and I know you of course too, but I'm of the age where, like, cell phones, especially like the new age cell phones now, did not exist, when I was growing up. So I was like, I should not even be attached, as much as I can be sometimes. I'm like, I really have to remove myself from that. But that's a part of the process too. But um, just in sharing a bit about how you had mentioned, change isn't easy. Like when you're faced with a change, and as you know, as a transformational coach and you're working with your clients, not everybody is willing to do it.
Correct.
So, when you were speaking, though, it did speak to me as you were willing to change as you were transitioning through your process, through your season, from one career shift to this brand new stage in life. um, and that the fact that you just were able to, I'm gonna say, transition authentically to you,
I
and
love
how,
that. Yes.
yeah, you were open to everything. I love how you were open, how you were just talking about, when you cried, you cried. You didn't, it's not an
Hmm.
overnight process, because again, I want to go back to reflect how when you lose something, feel it. You're going to feel it. Don't
Yes.
just mask it, as you mentioned earlier, masking those feelings. No, you had a loss. That's what it was. Address it, and then move forward in a healthy way, in which, as you were talking through what you did. But I just love how your process, because to me, it just sounds like you have this opportunity where you had a decision to take your power back. Like you came from this company, where you were working. I can only imagine, like, your schedule was, I'm sure, pretty sure, was crazy. Like your
Yes.
hours,
Yes.
where you were working a lot, but now you have this freedom, which allows you, to take that power back, to take all the things that God has naturally placed on the inside of you, and to just do. You mentioned being a generalist, which I am too. So thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for mentioning that, because you can often feel crazy when
Yes,
you
that's
have,
true.
or, many ideas, but you definitely have to find yourself in the Word of God, which brought me to one of my go-to scriptures. You know how the Bible, the scripture in the Bible speaks to, in Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have
Oh,
for
I
you."
love that.
Is a verse, and I think in this season for me is like, when God was like, "Let me remind you, like, you prayed for creativity," like, so, but really, I feel like you're
Yes.
just really walking in all those things that God has already put on the inside of you, which opened the door, for you to, now live this beautiful life of purpose. But I want to know, just to kind of get on a personal
Hmm.
tip, if you can share, if you want to share, not, of course, not to go too deep into anything, because I know you mentioned family and some of the transitional difficulties you had with that as well in career, like, with your marriage and things like that, because I've seen people and in career, currently, and when I was in my former career, like, work so much to the point where they've gotten divorces. They forget about their families, and you mentioned about that, like, just kind of being caught up and not
Yes.
really being present at home. And then, myself too, I've had to check myself, like, wait a second, like, I'm investing so much into this company. Is this something, what am I doing? What am I aligned correctly in life here? Or am I just, dedicating too much of myself to one particular organization, as you mentioned, and not having that work-life balance, like you mentioned.
Hmm.
So, like, in going through all of that, and you're here now, you've arrived at this beautiful place. Like, how has going through your experience shaped your, like, personal growth, your family growth, your marriage? Like, do you see changes, like, even with your parents and or siblings? Like, do you see any changes that you can reflect on, versus like what it may have been when you were in your former career field? And do you feel like it's changed for the better, or has it gotten, or is there, like, negative aspects to it? And then again, you don't have to go into the details of anything negative, but if there's something, teaching wise or enlightening or positive
Yes.
that you want to share, by all means.
No, I thank you for that question. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, Menina, that I really applaud you for the graceful way that you carry on in the conversation, because you are absolutely so brilliant and so skilled that we are doing this, and I truly feel like I'm just having a conversation with a friend. And
Oh,
um, I love the way that you are attentive, and you are able to actually, refer to things that I've said. I'm not sure I can do that. So that is definitely an amazing skill that you have. And, really hats off to you for that.
thank
First and
you.
foremost. I say that really because when you talk about like if I would want to share and I don't need to go deep, I think I feel very comfortable to share that when I referred in particular to the impact my career was having even on my marriage, I'm comfortable to share that, there were times, there were moments when things were really, really bad between my
Mm,
husband and I. And I look back now, and I'm able to really thank God for his presence, because I was so obsessed, and I use that word very strongly, obsessed with my job and with what I considered success to be. And to me
mm,
at that time, success meant I needed to continue moving upward. I had this goal that I wanted to be based on just the way the organizations were structured. You can get promoted, you had different levels. So every time I would move to one level, and I would think, well, that's it. I'm settled here. The ambitious, sort of driven person that I naturally am would then set another milestone. And I'm like, I need to go to the next level. So
mhm,
the impact of that was one where I have to admit, um, I placed a hold, or I paused on becoming a mother. And I don't know whether foolishly or not, I probably didn't realize at the time that, I had a limit. There was a clock, a biological clock. And I just
mhm,
kept telling myself, okay, next year, next year. And then next year would roll around and I had another promotion or I had something else that I wanted to work on. And I just kept moving that goalpost every time. And
mhm,
of course, it impacted my relationship. But my husband and I would always say, I'm so absolutely grateful to him for standing by me for the 21 years that we've been together, and just cheering me on and creating the space for me to fully be absorbed or engrossed in the work, um, and not use it against me in any sort of way. He's always been there. He's still there today. Even when we were in Egypt, he left his job in order for me to have that opportunity because he knew how much I wanted that, right?
mm, right.
The unfortunate, and actually, let me take back the word unfortunate. I do believe, I mean, it took me a very, very long time to accept not being a mother.
Mhm,
It was very painful to the point where I recall times in my life where I just locked off. I didn't want to be around family or friends, because every time I would go to an event, people would ask me, "So when are you going to have a baby? When are you guys going to settle down? Or your mom and they want grandchildren, or we want to see a little nephew or niece or what have you."
mhm,
And it would just eat at me, eat at me. It's like, what is wrong with all these people? Don't they know I have a career and I want to, do well? And it got to the point when we did start to pursue the options there, and it was very difficult.
mhm,
And locally, meaning in Trinidad, I had sort of gotten to the point where there nothing was working. So yes, we were trying and we were not able to get pregnant. And when I went to Egypt, I did pursue that there as well.
mhm,
Things were a bit more affordable in Egypt to go down that route of other procedures. But
mhm.
unfortunately, it was too late in terms of my biological clock, I would say. So it did not happen, and I had to grieve that as well. So I mean, it's interesting we're talking about my redundancy, but there was also grieving, for the mother that I would not be,
Mm,
basically.
mhm,
And throughout that, I often wondered, and I would have said it openly to my husband, Brent, are you annoyed with me? Do you have regrets? You've not been able to be a dad. Something that is supposed to be so natural for a woman, it couldn't happen for me.
mhm,
And he's always maintained fully, looking at me in the eye, basically, and holding that firm look to say to me, no, I don't I don't regret, I don't have any bad feeling toward you for this. It was just not meant to be for us, for us to do that. And yes, we do have a fur baby, and we've had fur babies along the way. And I really believe they are like children, really like human
yes,
children. But yes, that was the I want to say that that was the impact of being so driven and ambitious, but I also know deep in my heart, it may have contributed certain things in terms of me delaying the whole process, but I still believe that that was God's plan, and I'm not arguing with His plan. So that would have been one of the biggest difficulties or biggest challenges I had to bear, to go through, where I placed career in front of everything, um, and even remembering times, recalling times when I would sit with my husband to look at a movie. We would say we're having dinner and we're looking at a movie, and I have my laptop, and I'm not, again, not really present, or I have to get up and take a call, a late call, or I have to go in. Um, when I was in my job, I was a health, safety, and environmental manager, as I mentioned, and sometimes it meant I had to be offshore on a platform, or a rig, or a vessel, and that meant time apart. So all of these things were challenges, but I also believe they made me stronger, and they made me into a better person, to the point where now I I am so grateful for the time freedom that I have, and the fact that I can use that time with my husband and my parents and my brother, and I truly enjoy the moments that we have now, and I try to make the best of those times, because life, I mean, it's not like we have forever. We don't know what's going to happen in the next second, basically. So the
mhm,
times that I feel like I may have lost, I do believe I'm trying to make up for those now by really being present and really putting the attention, putting the attention to where it needs to be. And this time around, I would say to you, Menina, in this chapter, I am not letting work be the number one priority.
mm,
I did it for a very long time, for 28 years. And um, yes, there are fruits out of that, but no amount of money can take away from peace of mind, from laughter and joy and fun times with your family and your loved ones, basically. So I
yeah,
get the opportunity, and I'm absolutely grateful, and I feel very blessed to have that opportunity now to do that while my parents are still alive. My brother is there, my husband is with me still. I'm very grateful for that.
yes. Thank you so much, first of all, for sharing those bits of intimate pieces of your journey, you and your husband's journey, and shout out to your husband too of 21 years,
Yes,
just for being so supportive, and your mother and father. You sound like you have a beautiful family, very supportive
they
family.
are.
That's amazing. And then of course, in terms of just relationship or being married to someone, that is key, to have that support, that someone is in your corner as you're going through just life, because you're both going through life, in different transitions. So I'm sure as you have had to been there for him, like you kind of bounce off of each other, like
Yes.
whose turn is it?
Yes,
You
that no, that's a really good point you make there, because I think sometimes for professionals, um, we can get so absorbed in our own life and it's all about us.
Mhm.
And you may not, even though you're in a relationship, you may not be putting the other person first, or,
Mhm.
paying that level of attention to the other person. That is something that can really very easily happen. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's another point, for each one of us, whether it's through promotions, through celebrations, whether it's through um, challenges and grief and all of that, we need to recognize that it's not just us, recognize the need for servant leadership as well, and look at the impact your situation is having on others who are around you.
Mhm. Mm. Wow. So now that we have a lot more context about your journey, and then your own personal a little bit about your personal life experiences. What advice would you give to those who are currently facing like job loss, redundancy, or career transitions? Like, what advice would you give someone that they're going through that now, as far as like, it can be practical steps or like a mind shift help, you being a transformational coach, that's your expertise. But then also, of course, always listen to like, because you have 28 years of, employment experience. So when I hear years of experience, well, always, if any employers are out there listening, don't sleep on somebody's age, okay? Because
Yes.
you're sleeping on experience, that these people that are just coming into employment need to learn from. So, but what advice would you give to someone who's facing maybe the same thing that you're facing right now, or they're facing job loss, they're facing a career transition, and they don't, they feel lost, they're stuck.
Yes, absolutely. Um, there's a word that comes to my mind immediately, and that word is validation,
Hmm.
right? One of the things I rem- remembered, or I can speak to in terms of how I felt after my redundancy, was invalidated, and why I needed validation from external persons. I To this day I don't know why. I'm still going through my own journey trying to uncover, what is it? Why is it that I needed to have that validation?
Hmm.
And I'm identifying the root causes, and I'm working on that as part of my journey still. But I would say to someone, if you've just been recently made redundant or lost your job, or even if you're a few months ahead in that journey, or even a few years, always look at this as an opportunity that you have to do three things basically: rediscover your identity, reclaim your worth, and redefine your path.
Mm.
These three areas, if I were to call them pillars, these three, if for those who are maybe love mathematics, think of them like a Venn diagram. So it's like three circles. Where they intersect is what I define as revalidation.
Mm.
And it's not revalidation in terms of other people, the external factors. It's revalidation for yourself. Because one of the things that definitely happens to anyone who has gone through this type of loss, it's that you question yourself in terms of, are you good enough? You know, why me? What did I do wrong?
Mhm.
can I move forward? Is like I even asked, would anybody hire me? You know, maybe I've lost it. I don't have what I had years ago. So you need to be willing, after you take your little time to go through, the anger and the sadness and so on, you have to pick yourself up again and be willing to rediscover your identity. Because
Mm,
maybe the person you were in that particular job is not who you are meant to be. And you have to even question the authenticity of that identity that you had.
mm,
Did it make you feel happy? Were you proud of the person you were? What were your core values? Did your core values really align with the organization? Do you look at things differently now? What is your definition of success? Was it different then? Is it different now? I know for me, my definition of success is different now. And really get into the self, the aspects of the doubt. Do you have limiting beliefs that maybe are holding you back from venturing forward? Because
mm,
there's fear of rejection, fear of, as I said, am I going to ever get a job again? Will anyone hire me? Or when I decided to go into entrepreneurship, can I actually do this? So identifying those limiting beliefs and working on those, I think that's such an important aspect. Identifying or realigning with your core values, so that, because once you do that, it's going to help with your definition of success,
okay.
right? If your if your idea of success is just about all the material things and your core values are something different, there will be misalignment. So you need to go through, a person would need to go through that journey and then redefining your path. So the path may be back to a corporate job, or like in my case, totally new chapter.
Hmm.
So what is that journey what is that path going to be like? It's not going to be a bed of roses, obviously. If you're going back into corporate, maybe it may be you know simpler, right? Because it's what you know. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're going in a different direction, there is that uh, possibility that there can be fear of the unfamiliarity, new
Mm-hmm.
territory, new ground. So you have to be strong enough to recognize that and to take that. And I really believe all three combined help to revalidate who you are and help you rise stronger.
Mm. Wow. I need to book a coaching call with you myself. There were several drop the mic comments on what you just said, and I was like, if I could just drop this mic, I need to get some sound. I definitely need to get some sounds for this podcast. But one of the major things, well, the three concepts, of course, this is a re-summarize. The tips you shared with us was number one out of the three tips, like rediscovering your worth. That's big. Two, reclaiming your identity, because you do definitely go through that "who am I" phase.
Yes.
Been there, done that. And then to re no,
Redefine.
sorry, redefine your path. Listen, I can't read my own handwriting. That's what it is. I'm like, who wrote this chicken scratch? You did. Um, redefining your path, because it's so amazing. And then that last part, when you said maybe the person that you were is not who you meant to be, I was like, shut this whole podcast down. What? Wait a minute. Like, is she talking to me like directly? Like, are we just, I thought we were having a conversation for the audience, but obviously there's some stuff in here for me as well. Um, but it's true, because you have to, it's like rediscovering, I don't know, just a whole big box of surprises
Yes.
now, or gifts, I like to say,
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes.
that they're for you, but it's just like, you do go through that unknown phase of feeling it's a little scary, the process, especially if you're going into something different. what I found is like, I know, I have a lot in me. I know I can do it because I was able to give so much to another organization, of
Yes,
myself. And what,
absolutely.
just like you, like you were like, this powerhouse, this go-getter, making the company successful. So how come you can't make yourself successful? You
Very.
have
I
the
love
skills.
that. I love that you've said that because I do believe we forget that. Those who have been in corporate, we forget that we our success was what was making the company successful. And therefore,
Mhm.
if we've done it that way, we can do it for ourselves as well.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So, looking ahead, just into like your, careers, you as a transformational coach, excuse me, and all the beautiful guidance that you give to others. Is there anything else that you have like going on? Like what's next for you? What are some of the
Mhm.
projects or things that you might want to share that you're working on that you want others to pay attention to or
Well, it's a beautiful question, actually, because I think it ties in well with the fact that for all of us, we should aim to continue to grow and develop and pivot basically at some point in time. So for
Mhm,
me, the since I would say registered my coaching and consultancy business, I have been able to I've been able to work with a number of women as I described. I'm sorry that my dog
you're okay.
is making a lot of noise.
You're okay.
And
I have 2 fur babies.
I think she's probably getting a bit bored. um what I have discovered along the way with every one of the ladies that I dealt with, um there was such great information and sharing that I've gathered over the months that I have been thinking about maybe taking my coaching to the next level
Mhm.
around this concept of revalidation that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And the reason being, one, it's part of my journey, but also I am seeing, unfortunately, many women are experiencing this in the world today. Many women are going through redundancy or job loss, retrenchment, however we want to frame it, and are questioning their worth and needing to revalidate themselves because they felt that they've been invalidated. So I feel that I have a wonderful opportunity to support women through this because it's been my journey as well. And I think in the
Mhm.
coming months, maybe if not before the end of the year, but certainly in 2025, this would be the next step for me. I'm working on that at the moment. But while I'm doing that, I still continue to support women in the transformation space around my program is actually called Rise, which is
Mhm.
90 days to rock solid confidence. And Rise really is
Yeah.
about recognizing your inner barriers, igniting your inner power, standing up and speaking out, and empowering your future. So
Mm.
I have this as a 3-month program. So 90 days to rock solid confidence. And that's where I'm putting my energy and efforts into right now at this moment, helping them with that one-to-one coaching. I love one-to-one coaching because I really feel the topic is something that you lose some of the essence if you are in a group coaching setting. Because of the level of vulnerability women have to experience, it's better when you do it one to one. It's personalized and they
Yes.
can feel safe, so that's very important to me. And therefore, in that sense, to also maintain my own work life balance, I um I keep an eye on how many clients I would take on because I want to be able to give them the best of myself. So that's happening now, and because I am looking to move into this other space for the remainder of this year, I am offering some free one-to-one coaching sessions. Because I also recognize, Menina, that whether, whichever part of the world people are in, the economy is it's difficult, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're thinking about things like job loss. And therefore, we are all very cautious and very much more um, paying attention to how we spend, how we invest. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, if someone has to, if a woman has decided I am investing in my development, I need that person who can help me with a clear pathway, with the support and the accountability. I want her to basically get a sort of taste of what it would be like. And that's why I've opted to do some free sessions. So
Nice.
she can have a bit of a transformation within a very short space of time that will then give her the comfort to know, my gosh, if I'm going to give Alicia money now, basically, I'm going to pay her. I know she has my back. I know I'm going to get a deeper transformation.
Yes, beautiful. We will definitely be looking out. I know I will, and I encourage the audience to be looking out for all that you have coming up. And of course, I'm going to let you leave your I want you to leave your social media handles at
Mm-hmm.
the end. But before we wrap up, I just want to remind like our audience, listen, um it doesn't make a difference how old you are because you never really know like when your life will shift. We're going to go through many different chapters, as Alicia said, like in our lives. And if you are one that is mindful that God is in control, you don't know when he's going to shut one chapter down. You never know. So, but I want to remind us that there are many people that started their careers at like a later age, but were extremely successful, like Colonel Sanders that founded KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Um, who else? Laura Ingalls or
Oh, yeah.
Wilder. She began writing at the age of 65. And then, so forth. There's so many people that, just had different career shifts, even if in the losses, there's a saying that, or a quote that Thomas Edison used that he failed. He didn't consider himself failing 10,000 times, but he found 10,000 ways that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It's like how you
Beautiful perspective.
use. Yes, and how you find perspective in your life, as you mentioned as well. Like you kept
Mm-hmm.
changing your words during the podcast, which I love. That you would start off by saying, "Unfortunately," then you would say, "No, let me not use that word. Let me not use the word unfortunate," because your words do have power, and then it's also like we are out. One is, we're helping to write our story. I feel like our story has already been written. God knows what's going to happen, but it's like, what if God has all these beautiful things for you, and then you're like, nah, it's not for
That,
me.
yeah.
You know, you have that kind of language. You're speaking, just deaf to your situation, in a sense. But before we wrap up, first of all, thank you once again for being on the podcast. And I'm just so thankful that we were able to have this time to meet and discuss and just talk about your journey, because I know it's going to be an aid and a help to someone else. You're such a wonderful transformational coach that has so much to give to somebody else. That's one thing I'm big on. Life experience is a big thing for me. When I am dealing with somebody that I'm looking to, help me, like I want to know that they have experience, that they're
Yes,
able to
that is
pull
true.
from too. And not just education, because sometimes education is a good thing, but a lot of times, like when you just have the education and you have not gone through life experiences, not saying that you have to go through hard things to gain that, but life experience plus the wisdom that you were able to gain from it, the growth that you have won from that, and like you said, now you're able to help others is key. to helping somebody else, I feel. So, but this was definitely a powerful conversation. I'm so glad. I think I'm going to have to go back and listen to this myself several times again. But if you don't mind, Alicia, would you please leave all of your social media handles, anything you want to leave your website for the audience so they can know where to follow you, where to find you, how can
Yes.
they partake in your coaching services?
So absolutely. Now I always struggle. I have to say this openly that, when people say social media handles, I'm not even as I don't know if that is considered tech savvy, but um I know some people have like very fancy I guess names for their with their handles and so on. I would simply say that for me, I've really been focused this year on Facebook. So I do have my Facebook account, and persons can just check, look up my name. But I also realized recently that there seem to be a lot of Alicia Fuentes around. So I
Okay.
think it may be helpful probably when to put the link, and I can provide that. But
Yeah.
my Facebook page, sorry, is there. But I also have, for those women who may be interested to sort of get a taste of what I support, and the things that I share on, I do have a private female only Facebook group, which is called the Confident Working Woman. So they can even type that, but again, the link will be there. And um, I have an Instagram account. I have to admit, I'm not very, very active on the Instagram account at this point. That's going to change in the coming months. But basically, within the Facebook page, the Facebook group, people can certainly be in contact.
Awesome. And listen, it's okay if you cuz with not being that active, because again I've kind of gone down on my activity for social media as well, but I still do post things, and you have,
Yes,
links they'll follow you on, cuz those dopamine dumps are necessary.
definitely,
They are
definitely.
necessary, but listen, everyone, just to bring everything back into context. Listen, job loss and career transitions can feel like an overwhelming and isolating experience, and we're so thankful to have had Miss Alicia Fuentes on the show on today to share about her journey to help us, or those of us that have encountered job loss, and are dealing with it, or need to deal with it because you haven't dealt with it, because as Alicia mentioned, you mask that feeling, and you need to go back and revisit those emotions so that you can heal through your process in a healthy way in order to embark on your next journey 100% and show up 100%. But there's so much hope in your future. I love the fact that, she found purpose through her journey, as many of you will. And if you need a coach to guide you through your process, she's definitely one that can guide you through. Again, is she is an expert, not just from career experience, but she is an expert as a transformation coach. And as she's shared her story, she has validated that she's here to help you. So reach out and give her a link up with her. I was about to say give her a call. Link up with her and get the support that you need. Don't feel like that you have to isolate. Do not feel like that you have to do it by yourself, because it's not healthy, especially if you don't have that support group within your family or friends, someone that can empathize or sympathize with you. So for those of you listening, I hope that Alicia's words have brought comfort of some sort and clarity to whatever challenges you may be facing right now, because it definitely brought insights to me. Like I said, I was about to drop the mic. I needed a button, and I didn't have a button to click. I needed a mic drop button, but I didn't have one. But remember, the pain of loss, whether it's a job, a relationship, or a dream, can be a getaway to new opportunities and personal growth. So it's that resiliency that Alicia was speaking about that you have to have when you're going through trials and storms and tribulations and transitions and shifts of all sorts, because that's what life is going to be a part of anyway. There's a little bit of that in life. Life is not just about rainbow, and candy, or donuts and pizza, or things that I like to eat.
Now
It's
you
not
have me
just
feeling hungry.
right. Listen, it's not just about all of that. So I know, Miss Alicia, if I'm ever in Trinidad and
Yes.
Tobago. I was about to turn on my Trinidad and Tobago accent and be like, is that okay? Like,
Well,
I'm
you
gonna have
know
to
that
come and see
you
you.
are absolutely welcome. The minute you decide to come, you just need to let me know. And as we would say in local terms, we'll link up.
Ah! I would love that. I just think of the area now, thinking of like warm weather
Yes,
and I don't know,
it
beaches.
definitely is very warm. Today is an absolutely scorching day.
Oh, I love that. And again, your story just reminds me of just an opportunity of saving grace, just looking at perspective of your new life, your beautiful life, and just how because we can get caught up in our if you're one of those people that's all about work sometimes, it can be that, but you had the opportunity to create something new. So I love this journey for you. Thank you so much again. Is there any last words that you want to leave with the audience, or are you good?
I simply want to say thank you for having me and thank you for really helping navigate through the podcast. I really enjoyed sharing, this time with you, and I do hope that it has brought um, hope. So I hope that it has brought hope to
Yes.
the listeners, and I'm really genuinely looking forward to people reaching out if it's just for what I would call a clarity call, right? There's no cost to that, just to have a conversation to understand where you're at and where you probably want to go to. And as I mentioned, I do have the free coaching, some sessions available. So I'm quite looking forward to that because I know this can be a lonely journey.
Mm.
And until you really make that decision to seek the support and to move forward, it's it can be quite difficult. But thank you again, Menina, for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it, and wishing you all the best with your podcast going forward.
Thank you so much. As always, friends, listen, if today's episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who might benefit from hearing Alicia's story on today's podcast, please share this episode with them, especially if you are listening to this episode via YouTube. Click that subscribe button. It helps us reach more people. So click the subscribe button. You never know who might need that dose of encouragement. And, again, our podcast is From Grief to Purpose. Her story definitely reflected that. So thank you so much for tuning in to From Grief to Purpose. I am your host, Coach Nina, and my guest today was Alicia Fuentes, a transformation coach. Awesome coach. I look forward to joining you again. Until next time, friends, goodbye.